Hello, and welcome to another guide. I'm Chris, and this is going to be a new video about the Fast Imp Monk Treb. This is revisiting the absolute holy grail of 1v1 and flank strats, and this is something you really should try and pull off yourself, as long as you're not against shootings. There are many civs though, that can do other things as well. Fast Imp Monk Treb is something I made a video about before, but it's really adapted a long time since then, and obviously it needs a definitive edition remake. So what we're going to be looking into is, firstly, a build in this video, 30 plus 2 plus Wheelbarrow and 2 villagers in Castle Age. This is one of the more simpler and easier to execute builds. In the second video, I'm going to be releasing something a little bit, well, quite a lot stronger, and something that's never really been needed. Fast Imp Monk Treb like this, it wins me nearly every game I do it in. Very good strategy, and it's never really been needed to do the better version. But with quite a few civs, there's actually, only a select number of civs you could do Monk Treb with, you can actually pull off a much better version. And we're going to show that, we're going to talk about that, and hopefully you give both of these a practice yourself. But in this video, we're covering the basic one, and this will still make you quite a strong player if you learn to execute it quite well. If you want to skip this introduction, then on screen now is the time that the build actually starts. I'll be uploading these as builds to AoEcompanion. I've noticed recently that there's been a couple of people taking credit for some builds that, they didn't do. No one owns a build, but some people have been putting them up a bit wrong, some numbers are wrong, and, I don't like misinformation when it comes to builds. I like people to know what the most optimal and the best build is. So, check the link in the description. If I've updated them on AoEcompanion, then the link will be there. They are quite easy to follow text build orders. So the Monk Treb requires a lot of Monk Micro, and essentially what we're going to be doing is going to Imperial Age with a castle, and we're going to be going monks with block printing. There are a good few civs we could do this with, notably Aztecs, Teutons, Italians. Incas is one we're using now. Incas is probably one of the weaker ones and has very little eco bonus, which is why we're using them. Saracens, the Saracen market is actually quite, can really help in this build, so we're not using them. You have Spanish as well, who have pretty much a generic version. They have a really nice unique tech. Slavs, and there's a couple other civs I'm forgetting, I don't know if I've already said Byzantines. Burmese is also an incredibly strong civ to do this with, especially when other people are expecting iron buy. You can really just demolish someone who tried to make a castle to defend any form of iron buy. So I don't want to spend too long in explanation because this is going to be quite a long video. It is a fast imp after all, so we're going all the way to imp with this. And obviously I need to make 2 videos about this, one for the stronger version later. So let's jump straight into the build, and we're going to talk about it as we go. So you start by queuing up your 4 villagers, and obviously building your 2 starting houses. We are Incas, we do have the slight advantage that we have 1 extra sheep. With Fast Imp you have quite a lot of food, so it's not so important to consider. As soon as these villagers build houses, send them to the sheep. And we want to send our next villagers to the sheep as soon as possible. As soon as they're created, to the sheep. We want 6 on sheep. This is not the most basic of build orders. You kind of have to know what you're doing before you try and do this. But there's still the underlying concept of 6 on sheep, 4 on wood for a very basic build. Now this is one of the more recent versions of the definitive edition where they might have actually, wood lines might be a little bit more passable in the 1v1 arena map size. But we can see what happens. Let's go for this wood line. So 6 on sheep, now 4 on wood. Every time you move on to a new sheep, make sure you bring in a new one onto your TC, so there's no idle time. We are against Tatars. We're not going to take the AI sheep, that's just cheating. Lumbercamp here looks okay. And again, bring in more sheep into it. Don't forget to scout your base with your sheep, by the way. It's a really good idea to do because it requires very little effort. We're also only going to be using 3 deer. because if a build can be executed with 3 deer, then it can be executed with 4. But if you start with, if we do it for 4 deer, and it's really tight, then it won't work if you only spawn with 3 deer, which is a 50-50 chance. So 6 sheep, 4 wood, now we want to go get our boar. This can be done with the next villager, but it depends on how close this villager is to creating. If you think it's going to be a little bit late, for example the sheep is going to finish long before you get it in, then take a villager off the sheep and send him to go get the boar. You want better timing. The next villager will go to build a house on the way to the berries. We're going to start walling this off just a little bit. So this is where you do your kind of mix of food, you know, one gets a boar, 4 to berries, 1 to boar. You can have 7 on the boar now, but what I quite like to do is to have 8. Again, this doesn't quite fit into conventional builds. A lot of people tend to have 7 on boar and, you know, they add 4 to berries immediately after. If you get a bit more adept, you'll start adding 8 to boar. And that really helps when you're pushing deer as well. You have less food rot because you have more villagers on it. But obviously you don't want to spend too much time pushing deer. Oops, I let that villager garrison there. So next we're going to need to get in the next boar, which is hiding over there. And this next villager around 17 pop is when I like to build my house. Again, you just need to consider after 6 sheep, 4 wood, it's a mess of the food until 19 pop. You just want to end up with 4 on berries and the rest under the TC food. Oops, where are you going? So this villager will build 3 houses. So we're Incas, we don't need to build those 3 houses, but if you're a generic civ then you would. So that's why we're building them right now. So we've now got 19 on food, we want a second lumbercamp. We don't have any great places that are particularly safe on this map, but that's to be expected with this version of Arena. We're going to make sure we push in some more deer. Oh, okay. And we're going to make sure we have our sheep nearby. This is when, around 19 pop, when I add the second lumber camp. So 19 pop you're done with your food, 20, 21, 22, 23 pop, 1 behind for villagers. They will go to wood. I like to build 2 farms then. So make sure you do things like this. For example, task your villagers to take your berries in an order, which keeps 2 on each side. That way you won't have them bumping into each other. The key to Fast Imp is a lot of Dark Age farms. Now we have 8 on wood, and now we want 3 on stone. And essentially, over time in Dark Age, as you can afford it, add yourself some extra farms. Just keep all these villagers working as efficiently as possible. Again, I wouldn't really recommend auto-scouting if you can avoid it, but I don't want to be going to and from my scout while making a guide. It doesn't matter too much, we're against an easy AI. Oh, if the objectives worked, that would be fun, but we're against an idle target, I'm assuming. So we've got 3 on wood, and now we want to do 4 to gold. That'll do for now. And that'll make our 30 pop, 30 Dark Age pop. And of course after that we click up. We still have a lot of sheep left, 3 sheep, plus the one we're taking. So I would like to keep 6 villagers on that just for now, just so we're not having so much rot. Although we can afford to add more farms. Again, really simple build. I do have a monk micro guide that I made a long time ago. I do intend to refresh that as well. but for now I'll link the currently existing one in the description of this video. So again, fairly standard Dark Age, we click up, we have 8 on wood, 2 lumber camps with 4 on each, we have 4 on berries, and we have, what's this, 10 under TC with food. 4 of them are farmers right now, but this can depend entirely on what's going on. If you have an extra deer, you'll probably even have one less farm. As soon as they move on to the sheep though, that's when I'm going to start transitioning them onto farms. The earlier the farmers, the better. It doesn't matter if you're a bit less efficient with food rot. Also keep an eye on your wood. We have a lot of wood because we have 8 on wood. If you click up to Feudal Age with 0 wood and you have 6 villagers on wood, you will have enough to build a market and a blacksmith. You'll have pretty much exactly 325, which is what you need. So we have 8 on wood, we're going to be flowing a lot more than that, and we could already afford quite a bit of farms. So now we're going to be transitioning these villagers off. And we could technically wait to horse collar, but we're not losing so much wood and we're not going to be using these farms too much later. So that's the most farms we can afford right now. So we're going to put that there and we're going to build ourselves a blacksmith. I like to build these with the villagers on wood because strictly speaking we're not caring too much about house walling. We could do that later. We've got some walls coming in here. We could easily add a couple of buildings there. Sorry, I forgot to mention these 2 villagers in the Feudal Age. One goes to stone, one goes to gold. A bit more buildings there, castle in the middle, and we have, you know, a decent wall going on there. As we can afford them, get double barracks, click up to Castle Age when those 2 buildings are built, mark in Blacksmith, and then Horse Collar after that. And make sure you turn on Auto Reseed Farm. Our 2 to 4 early farms, they're going to be expiring somewhat soon. Now with this villager, you can either add 1 to gold, or you can build another farm. Now this is quite dependent on what you want to be doing, because you will do either 3 monasteries alongside your Trebs, or 2 monasteries, 1 unique unit, which obviously Incas won't be adding if you're Italians with Genoese, really good addition. Or 2 monasteries and a barracks, for example, Japanese or Byzantines, who have very good house or cheap spearmen anyway to attribute with their monks. Even light cav, if you mass 5 to 6 spearmen, no upgrades, they can do a huge amount of damage to the light cav, and they're very, very helpful. So if we want to go for spearmen, I want to add the farm now. Otherwise, if I want to just go 3 monastery, I will go to gold. Incas is a little bit weak for this, because they don't have atonement. If you're against a civ with atonement, you can have some real trouble. But as Incas, as a meso civ, you don't need much food to make eagles, you just need gold, and that's something you already have. Okay, so in Castle Age we're going to start with Wheelbarrow and 2 villagers. These villagers will then go to gold when they're finished with the berries. As I said, before the berries ended, if we wanted to go for spearmen, we could also put them to farms with all this wood. But that we don't have to do, if we just want to go triple monastery. It's nice to let these farms recede because we're going to be using them no matter what. Because as soon as we click up, we just want to take as many villagers off farms as possible. We want to keep 5 or 6, depends on what we want to make, just to keep the TC running. So if there's villagers on farms that are about to expire, they'll just go on the ones that you've just refreshed. So it still, you know, you still get the advantage of it. So when the castle is built, that's when we should be clicking up. Something you tend to have to do is abuse the market a little bit. For example, you sell 200 wood and buy 100 food, and you also repeat that process if you wanted to. We now have the resources to click up as soon as these villagers are created and as soon as the castle is created. I like to send these villagers from the castle over to gold. The 2 villagers in Castle Age after Wheelbarrow, they go to wood. We want about 10 wood, it helps us with our monasteries. And I like to keep a villager nearby to the castle. So we've clicked up to him, sub 19 minutes. And we can get the gold mining upgrade if we keep a couple on wood. But I like to just send them to gold right away. This might clash a little bit. Send you over there. Let's see if this fits without any issue. So something I like to do is make 2 petards on the way to Imperial Age. Why do I do this? Because essentially you have monks that can protect them early on. Light cav in particular, they're actually not that great against monks with block printing. Scouts, not much of a chance. In Castle Age, sure. But you really need to be aware that scouts are not that great of a counter to Imperial Age monks. Only real Castle Age, and when it gets to Imperial Age, they need such huge numbers. 2 petards will get us in, we'll have the monks. If you have protected relics or nearby relics, for example behind you, like here, especially if you're playing team games, in team games it's so important to be close. Here, you know, this is a very close 1v1 map. If you're quite far away, you might want to consider another strategy. But yeah, especially if you're quite close, then do the strategy, grab some nearby relics. This relic is quite safe because even if you had a scout guarding it, we could run into the range of the castle, probably before the monk dies. I also like to get 3 monks out before I get Sanctity. Make sure you got a villager queued up, and even selling some food can really help you here. So now we're going to select our monks, we're control grouping them, for example. That's how I like to control my monks. And we create a Treb, most importantly block printing right away, then illumination. Put that in the idle monastery. Keep your scout nearby if you have it. Ally scouts would be really helpful. I also just noticed, because this is a custom map gen, I spawned with a regular scout instead of a meso scout. That's interesting. I would also like to add a gate here. Let's build that just to speed things up a bit. Keep everything running. It can be quite a pain to micro this, but you shouldn't have too many problems. For example, we're now at 23 minutes, this one's doing a 3 TC boom, they're thinking of clicking up soon. Probably just built some buildings. Now they have to deal with monks in their base, and Trebs are going to be killing their TC quite soon. Of course this is an AI, we're not looking to beat it too hard. I'm not even sure what difficulty this is on by default. But it would be quite nice if you are able to Treb the stables, and TCs are also quite helpful. Redemption's actually not needed too much because a lot of people tend to just assume it's not going to be a problem. Oops, he's attributed to 4. And we're going to get the Oxy. Hey bud, he's not converting. But yeah, microing your monks is quite simple. I don't want to spend ages just sitting here microing monks in front of you. But control group all your monks. Control 1, keep holding control, and then left click a monk to deselect it. Then press 2. All this while holding control. Deselect, control group 3. Deselect, control group 4. This way, you just cycle through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for example. Well, 9, 0. And you'll have all your monks selected. Redemption can come quite late, as I said. I don't like to get it early, and you need the monk mass early on. This is a lot of monks now. This is really hard to stop. They need 10 light cav to stop this at this point. Even then, I will convert most of those, and those light cav in turn will keep my monks alive by fighting off the other light cav. It's quite important that if you're going to try and fight this, you need at least double the numbers. That way, you'll still probably lose the fight overall, but the most they'll end up with is a couple of light cav and no more monks. Of course, monks are cheap, and a player can easily just go to stone, create a TC, or do whatever, but they can actually boom ahead at this point. I've not been speaking too much about eco because this is very kind of all-in build, but if you have maybe 15 to 16 on gold, you get a gold mining upgrade. Then at that point you could decide if you wanted to switch to eco, which you would then just start queuing villagers onto wood. Obviously this depends on how much eco you actually manage to convert. and how many units you convert and how strong your push is doing. For example, rather than a TC, you can easily just add another Treb. So hopefully this gets this a little bit more clearer. Oops. I know it's been a bit hit or miss in the sending section, but hopefully that makes it a little bit, easier for you to understand how strong the strategy can be. It's really important to do this with close maps in closed maps. Make sure this is probably the maximum distance you really get away with this. In team game, you're always going to be this distance away flank to flank. And just double check they don't have Teutons, so their monk conversion bonus doesn't screw you over. So that's it for this video. I'm going to make the next video soon, part 2, and we're going to go a lot more in depth into things. It's going to be a lot stronger, and we'll talk about that as it comes. But thanks for watching, have a good day.